Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to another Brand+Shred. Guys, I can't tell you how excited I am. You know, Adam Contos is one of those guys that when I first met him in a few years ago, I was just like, my goodness, this guy's a leader. This guy is inspirational above everyone else I had met up to that point at the conference. And he just said some profound things to me. And as I've followed him, as I've continued to consume his content, now he's got a book out even. He's just been one of those people. He leads by example. He leads by actually putting his money where his mouth is. He's so brilliant. And start with a win. We're going to be talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. So excited to have the one, the only Adam Contos this morning. What's up, Adam? Excited to have you here.
Hey, Josh, it's great to see you, my friend. And I'll tell you that intro was so motivating. I want to do some push-ups right now.
Let's go. Me and you could probably knock out the push-ups because I'll be honest, if you don't know Adam's background, you were actually in the Marine Corps. Like you were one of those guys. You are one of those guys who could probably knock out like 100 push-ups right now, no problem. Just like, yeah, I got this. No big deal.
That's it's funny you say that. That's actually one of those things in my life. I'm like, if I can't do my push-ups, then I'm worthless in life. So I keep at it.
Okay, so how many do you have a set goal of like every day I've got to get 100 push-ups, or are you that type of guy?
Yeah, I just do 4 sets of 25. I mean,
there you go.
You look at that. I mean, it's easy. It's like everything else in life. You just do it, and you're like, oh, yep. I'm done with it.
That's so funny. If I could show my camera, my team knows right here, I have a push-up mat right next to my desk. And that's what same thing. I'll do 100 push-ups minimum a day. It just keeps you, it's those little things, which we're going to be talking about, start with a win in that book in particular. It's just little things like that help motivate you for the rest of the day. Knocking out those 100 push-ups. And for most of you listening to this, 100 push-ups is nothing to balk at. Try doing 100 push-ups. If you haven't done 100 push-ups in a while, it's not, it will push you a little bit. So it's stuff like that, Adam, that again, it just really separates leaders from those who are just kind of going through the monotony of every single day. So, but for those who don't know, CEO of RE/MAX, you've been CEO since 2017. You've accomplished some incredible things in your life. You were in the sheriff, like I said, you were Marine Corps, then you were in sheriff's department. But how? I've got to ask, dude, how did you get started in real estate? Sheriff's department, all of a sudden you're like, hey, let's go sell houses. That sounds like fun.
So I'm not a real estate agent. I'm right. A business builder. So this is an entrepreneurial space we operate in, and I actually got my first taste of real estate probably, I don't know, 85 or 86. My friend's mom was a RE/MAX agent, and her office was where we still have an office right now. And I used to go there and flip through the MLS and the tear sheets that would come off the dot matrix printer.
Oh,
and we would write down the showings on 3x5 note cards, and then and the MLS book. And that thing was magic. And I remember she would tell us, she's like, you're not allowed to give this out to anybody, but here's a highlighter, and here's the MLS book, and you can go through it and you can plan my day for me. So we would work at that. But a few years down the road, I had a security consulting company that I had started. I started several businesses, and I was a counterterrorism and homeland security instructor based on my law enforcement, SWAT background, things of that nature. And I started a security consulting company. I saw real estate agents were getting hurt and killed doing their jobs. So I wanted to do something about it and built a program called SAFER, Safety Awareness for Every Realtor. RE/MAX and some other industry groups picked it up and ended up where I'm at.
That's great. So basically, Adam's trying to tell you, if you ever see him, don't come at him. He's going to take you down. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's prepared for you to come at him. So the whole SAFER, when I first heard about it, I was just like, this is really cool, because we've all heard those horror stories of realtors being, attacked or something bad happening. So even in this way, again, you saw this, you saw an opportunity, you saw a problem. And that's, as entrepreneurs like we're just like, hey, we can help solve this problem. Our knowledge, our background, our expertise, if we can help just a few people, if we can keep a few people safer in this world, why not go after it? And then, of course, it evolved from there. Like you said, you got into the RE/MAX organization. And what's so cool is RE/MAX is one of those. And like, as a kid, my had family involved as a RE/MAX agent. RE/MAX has always been one of those brands in particular. You see the balloon, you're like, RE/MAX is one of those brands. And then you get into it. And like I said, you kind of work your way up the ranks, which to me, you are one of those self-made entrepreneurs. Who knew? Did you ever think, back years ago from the Marine Corps to sheriff's SWAT, when you were doing all this, you're like, yeah, I'm going to be the CEO of RE/MAX one day. That's just going to happen. Did you ever expect that?
No, I didn't think that for a second. I knew I wanted to lead to the best of my abilities, and I love helping people get better. That's just one of the things that pleases my heart is if I can help somebody improve themselves, that's a win for me. So I knew wherever I wanted to go or where I wanted to end up that was my goal, and lo and behold, that's what a leader does is help people realize their potential and do greater things. So it plays together very well.
It's so see, that's what leaders, they just recognize. We understand that we're not trying to help ourselves as much. We see others and we're like, hey, you know what? How can I use my gifts? How can I use my abilities to serve the people around me? And it comes from a very like a true place. And you're one of those guys. Like I said, when I first met you in the conversation that we were having with a few other people, I just knew the things that like watching you and the way you were talking, the way you were serving others. I'm like, holy cow, this isn't just another guy who's in it to be an executive in real estate. This isn't just a guy who wants to kind of, hey, look at me. You were coming from a true place. And that's what always has set you apart from so many others, which I want to talk about this. I mean, you wrote a book last year, correct? Start with a Win came out last year. Is it 2020, right? Is it last year?
Yes. Start with a Win. It came out in October. So,
so 2020.
Yeah, it exactly. Yeah. So, or actually, no, 2021. Start with a Win podcast. You broke up a little bit on that, or the book. Which one?
No, your Start with a Win podcast came out last year, but the book came out just a couple of months ago.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting a little breakup here on the
It's all good. It's one of you gotta love technology, right?
That's what we do, man.
And that's what we do. And for all of you listening right now, if you're wanting to do with a podcast, by the way, you got to go check out Adam's Instagram because he's actually promoting. If you want to be a podcaster, if you really want to start doing this next year, like him and I are doing, mistakes come up, but he's actually giving away a podcast setup. So you guys got to go check out his Instagram. I think you have a couple more days depending on when this airs, but you got to check it out. You got to check out his Instagram anyway. But so being that you've been doing a podcast, you've been Start with a Win, and then what made you want to release a book? Oh, because it's a labor of love. I've been there, but why did you say that? Hey, you know what? Now it's time to do a book.
It's funny, Josh. So I mean, and we've been doing the podcast, I don't know, a couple of years now, and I got a call from a publisher. I've wanted to write a book. It's always been on the bucket list. What is it? Something like 92% of society wants to write a book, and and only 1% actually gets it out the door. So I wanted it. I'd been creating material, and obviously, as a podcaster, you're in the constant quest for good content. You're always looking for some value that you can share with your audience. And I was always taking notes and writing things down. And I was looking at it going, this is starting to look like a book. So, and of course, everybody's coming at you going, hey, you ought to write a book. I love what you're saying. You ought to put it all together in one place. I sound familiar, buddy? So, it was hilarious. One day the phone rings and I pick it up, and it's this guy named Zach from Wiley Publishing. He's like, hey, Adam, you don't know me, but this is Zach from Wiley Publishing. Do you know who Wiley Publishing is? I'm like, no, I don't. And he rattled off all these authors, and he says, we're a big publishing company on the East Coast. Do you want to write a book? And I go, yeah, what would I call it? He goes, well, why don't you think about that for a week or two? I'll send you the contract, review it, so on and so forth. And so I review the contract, put it in there, and I threw all these names at him. And I said, how about these names? And he goes, what about Start with a Win? And I go, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. He goes, well, that's your podcast, and that's what's in your heart and in your head. So why don't you call the book that? I go, oh, that's a great idea. So that's what we went with.
And now you've got a book, Start with a Win. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into this because there it is there. And I was telling Samantha, I ordered it about a week ago on Amazon, and I was excited to get a copy of it. But with everything and shipping and everything, I was dumb. I should have had this about a month ago so I could actually have a copy here with it. But we're going to get a copy here. As soon as I get it, I'm going to share it with all you guys. But gotta love the holiday season. That was poor plan. See, guys, got to think you think it have. Start with a Win. Really, when you started putting it together, what was what were you thinking? Like you said, you're like, hey, I want to create a book. But what was it really that drove you to put out that book?
I wanted to, obviously I'm a helper. I believe in helping and giving to other people. And then I'm a firm believer in karma. And, I wasn't doing it to get anything back. I was doing it to give into the greater cause of what I think is an opportunity for all the leaders in society, which is, hey, how do we make mankind just a kinder, more collaborative space so we can all enjoy it more together. And
Yeah.
so that was ultimately the goal. That's why I got into law enforcement, for crying out loud. I wanted to help people. There's some great excitement and some adrenaline dumps that go on, when you're in a high-speed chase or in a SWAT call or something like that. But the reality is, once you get down, you sit there with a child who's hurting and help them, or a business person who's been victimized, or whatever it might be, and say, how can I help? That's ultimately what was in my mind when I sat down with the book is, okay, what are the challenges in society? And what have I studied and learned over the years that I can throw out there via a book and help people? So that's ultimately what I wanted to accomplish by doing that.
And clearly, like I said, from everything from your podcast to now the book, that is your goal. And what I love probably with you more than almost anybody I've had on the show, you come from a background of servitude. Like I said, coming from the Marine Corps, then going into SWAT and sheriff's office, you understood what true, like you said, sharing some of these stories and sharing probably some of the experiences that you could of, helping out families, helping out children in less than fortunate situations. You really had that mentality coming into it. And now in an executive role, in a CEO role in particular, you just have the opportunity to kind of come from a different place. You have those guys. And like you said, not to sidestep that both of us are entrepreneurs. We think in that way. We want to build businesses. We enjoy it. Like you said, it's that thrill of that. But at the same time, you didn't come from stock of like, hey, grew up as an executive son, like grew up as a businessman. You came from a very, very different place. And I think that's why this book in particular, and your leadership skills and your leadership ability, I see what Remax has done. I see how you lead all of the realtors that are part of Remax, how you continue to inspire them. It just comes from a different place. It just comes from, like I said, like you mentioned, it comes from a place of like, hey, if I can even help somebody be 1% better, a little bit better, that makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, totally. And Josh, you mentioned a lot of great things here. One of the key aspects of leading and I know we're on here to talk about personal branding and things like that as well. But I mean, ultimately it's modeling the success that you want to see in others. Yep. And all of that plays into, who do we go seek to be with? We seek to be with the people who are perpetuating the outcomes that we're seeking ourselves. And if that's we're down on ourselves and we want to feel pain and misery and depression and things like that, what we do? We go seek out people who are really upset in life. If we want to go be better golfers, we go find somebody who's golfing better. If we want to go be better realtors, we go find somebody who's selling more houses or has a certain skill set in that, or the same way with the mortgage industry, or you name it. Go find somebody who's modeling the behaviors that you want to model yourselves. And that's ultimately what we have to hold up the mirror and ask ourselves as leaders in society is, if I look at that mirror, what am I modeling and who's going to follow me? Why, do your kids fly off the handle and say cuss words at the weirdest times? And you're like, well, wait a second, I'm doing that too. Or, if somebody honks their horn and your kid flips them off and you're like, hey, you shouldn't do that. You're like, oh, I do that too. Or do they go help the old lady across the street at the crosswalk? And you're like, I did that last week. And, they're watching me. So, I mean, what behavior do you want to see in society? That's what you need to go do. And people will be attracted to you exhibiting that. If you do nothing, then nothing happens.
Right.
And we get the results of it. So, that's kind of what it's all about.
Oh my gosh, this opens up so many avenues that I want to continue. And you mentioned this Brand+Shred is focused on helping people build their brand, their personal brand. And I want to kind of dive into this a little bit more as you kind of have opened this up for us, because as the CEO, as the guy, the one leading Remax, everybody kind of looks to you right now, which is again a heavy mantle to carry. But as executives, so many people sidestep the opportunity to build a brand because they're like, oh, well, it's self-aggrandizing. It's super arrogant. If I try to build a brand, if I'm saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. And I'm like, it's the opposite, as a matter of fact. Now, you can come from a very cocky or arrogant place, but if you're doing it in the right way, if you're just being the leader you should be, building a brand and showcasing, I mean, again, like I started this, you lead by example. You lead from the front, because as real estate agents, as mortgage professionals, whatever profession you're in, building a brand is ultimately helping others by the content, the value that you're sharing. That's the goal in building a brand, is sharing something valuable with your audience. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, it's sharing that, that gift that we all have inside of us. And that gift is some sort of a leadership. People might think that they don't have anything to share or anything to give. Well, if that's the case, then go find something. What is your interest? What is your passion? And what can you go magnify in society? Are you the knitting king or queen of your neighborhood? I'll tell you, that's a huge industry, and some huge brands are built on knitting. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Are you into watercolor painting? Are you into, uh, you know, rebuilding custom cars or classic cars or something like that? Are you into selling real estate or helping people find a great, community to find happiness in? Because, by the way, real estate agents, here's the secret, and mortgage people, you're not selling a house, you're selling happiness. Okay.
Bingo.
So how do we help people find that happiness? And they're not going to want to find it if we're freaking miserable ourselves, or we're complaining about other stuff. Politics. Don't build your brand around politics. Build your brand around what's best in your community. But whatever it might be. But ultimately, leaders are created on brands. And I'll just say this: leaders lead, and they're present and trustworthy because they're leading from a present, trustworthy position. Hiders hide. And what happens when we don't see somebody? They're a stranger. And what do we teach our kids? Don't talk to strangers.
Stranger danger. Stranger danger.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, what do you want do you want people to be afraid of you, or do you want them to go, I'm pretty enamored with the direction that person's taking in our community. I'd like to be part of that.
Oh, see, and that's the brilliance of building a brand and creating valuable content, is because as you're sharing, and again, so many people think, and like I said, executives that we work with some of the companies that we work with and consult with, so many of them are like, well, it just comes off, from the wrong place. If we're creating content around our executive, it's just like, look at me. And I'm like, number one, if you're thinking about it in that way, it probably is going to come off that way. Think of it as like, what value? I love that you and I are both big, and I know you've had Gary Vaynerchuk on your show before. Both you and I are huge fans, and kind of the idea that you're talking about. Find your niche and share things that you're passionate about. Share things where you can create value, whether it's knitting, whether it's gardening, whether it's, whatever it may be. Your community, the people around you, they see you as you start to share that content. That's how they're going to build trust with you. Whether you're a realtor, whether you're a mortgage professional, whether you're attorney, whatever it may be, just start sharing your hobbies. That's where the relationship is truly built. You and I both know, and we've seen it in real estate. We've seen it in mortgage. Those realtors who are like, I'm the best realtor. You should use me. And like, when you build your brand solely around your profession, which again, we all love you, realtors and mortgage professionals. We love you guys, but there's a right and a wrong way to do it, right, Adam?
Totally. People want to be your friend before they want to do business with you. I mean, let's go back to and I call it the Great Reset. We've got all these different names for COVID and how society's changed, and we get the Great Resignation, all this other stuff going on. But in all reality, it's a great reset. It's an emotional reset that everybody's going through, and now's a great opportunity for people to start building their brand. And yes, people are going to throw stones at you. I'll be the first one to say, I'm the CEO of a public company. And when I started podcasting, creating videos, spending my time reaching out to display my values, the values of our organization, and the direction that we want to take this in our communities, I had a lot of people internally and externally push back against me. And that was because, you're right, Josh, it looks self-aggrandizing, and it looks egotistical, and it looks like you're misusing the intention of your time to help your business, your shareholders, whatever it might be. I mean, I don't know what level of business I'm talking to somebody in right now, but we all have people that own our businesses. It could be us, it could be other people. And they might look at it and go, you're just trying to say, look at me, look at me. But the reality is you're saying, here's the values of our business, and I'm here to demonstrate those. So people want to know that. They want to know why you exist and what you're in it for. What is your why? And, you hear a lot of people talk about that. Gary Vaynerchuk, even though he used to drop F-bombs all the time, I don't know that he necessarily does that much anymore.
Not as much.
No, he does. In fact, strange thing. I think he came and spoke at one of our conventions, and somebody someplace said they're not into that. And he said 0 cuss words when he was on stage. And everybody's like, what happened here? I'm like, the guy is a professional. He knows his brand and he knows his audience. And then, and he spoke for us the second time. No F-bombs at all. And I've talked to him several times over the past several years. He's just a good human being who's trying to help people get better. Yeah. And that's what he built his brand on. It was originally about wine. His dad owns a liquor store. He helped his dad, find wealth as an immigrant, which is amazing. That's the American dream. And God love him for that. And he helped his family. And now he's helping other people find their brand and their place in their communities by becoming known for who they are.
So I want to go back to this because this is probably one of those things that if you guys didn't hear what Adam said as he started that, you talked a lot about when you started this journey of building your brand, of when you started kind of putting yourself out there personally. I'm sure you got pushback. I'm sure the board members, I'm sure people, like you said, in the real estate community were like, Adam, like, what are you doing? Like, dude, don't do this. Don't be one of those guys. Like, but you're like, you know what? And you've mentioned this a couple times, and you and I think the same way. Like, I have something to share. I've been given a God-given talent, a God-given gift. And if I can share just a little bit, if I can inspire, if I can help just one person from what I'm doing, then then for myself, I'm achieving what I've set out to do. So what would your message be for all those executives in particular, maybe mid-level management, regional people, if 2022 is your year to start building your brand, and however you decide to do it, around whatever niche you decide, maybe it's just sharing, like start with a win. Maybe it's something every single day that you're starting. What would your message be to all those who have kind of held back or who have had that fear inside of them because of the community around them saying, no, you can't do this. Like, you're an executive, don't do this.
That's a great question, Josh. I mean, the reality is when people push back against what you're doing, that is validation that they're afraid you are going to become successful with it. They're afraid you are going to become successful with it. And I mean, it's a fascinating perspective because that's validation you're doing it right. It's like when you start a business and other people start attacking you. Why are they attacking you? Because they think you're going to be successful doing that business. So, I mean, I look at it as fuel on the fire. So, I saw people pushing back against me. They're like, I got letters from people going, you should be running a company instead of being on video. And then for every one complaint I probably got hundreds or thousands of people going, thank you. You inspired me to send videos to my clients. You inspired me to understand that I can market myself, even though I don't like how I look or how I sound, or, maybe I screwed something up in the past, but I got over it and I'm moving on now. Or, hey, thanks for telling me I should wake up early and go exercise because now I feel so much healthier. And my doctor said this saved me from a heart. I mean, literally, I've heard those things over and over and over again. And you go, okay, it's just taken a little longer for those people who are upset about this to get to the point where they get past their fears, because fear and overwhelm stop action. Oh, fear and overwhelm stop action. What's the best way to get past fear and overwhelm? Take action. So anybody who decides I can't start a podcast, I can't put a video on YouTube or on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever the platform is, just go do it. And then do it about 10 more times and go back and look at them and go, that's the worst I'm ever going to be. And now I'm getting better every day. And voila, there you go. I mean, Josh never had those cool red lights behind him and the fancy microphone and all this other stuff. It took you a while to get there. And now you're like, hey, I have an audience and I have the ability to build a business around this.
Well, to even more of that, I mean, look at this show, this podcast in particular. Like you and I have had technical difficulties. It happens, still happens to the best. Like we have the fancy equipment, we have the fancy, and it still happens to the best of us. And it's just a learning opportunity. And you just push through it. You don't let it hold you back. Like I said, you don't let that fear overcome. Because I tell everybody this, and I would kind of as we start to wrap things up, as we're respectful of your time, Adam. I always tell people, and you mentioned this briefly, and I want to build on this for all of you. Every single one of us, that sometimes we overthink creating content, building our brand. We have to, maybe it's knitting, maybe it's gardening. You and I mentioned, maybe it's real estate. Maybe you're so passionate about real estate, you just want to share real estate all the time. Sometimes when it comes to creating content and the value that we share is just being us. I know I've watched Adam's video and I've watched, some of your podcasts and I've watched some of your shows, and just watching how you're a leader, how you interact with people, it makes me smile. It makes me want to be a better person. It wasn't the content in particular. I just see how we as human beings interact with one another. And that in itself is valuable. So if you're thinking of starting a brand to build your brand in 2022, I've mentioned 2022 is a year of attention. All you need to do is be yourself. And that is valuable to the people around you, to your friend, like you said, creating friendships, building new relationships. Adam, they don't want a realtor in the very beginning. They want a friend. People as human beings, especially, I love that you call it the Great Reset. We've reset a lot of things since COVID started. And now more than ever, people are craving relationships. People are craving new friendships. And although we have some of the best value that we can share is just being us, just being like putting ourselves out there in uncomfortable situations, breaking through that barrier and doing like you're doing. It's just leading by example and and doing it, executing on it. Like you said, Adam, it's really exciting to see. Go ahead.
That was what you said was amazing, Josh. It reminds me of something that an amazing man told me just a few days ago. So I met this. You ever have one of those moments where you meet somebody and you're like, I'm going to be friends with you forever?
Yep.
I mean, I had that moment a few days ago, and I met this man, and he's a Texan. He's probably 65 years old. Runs a bunch of private equity funds, and he's a deeply into psychology, and he helps students and schools raise their, like inner city schools, raise their grades. And he's built some incredible inner city schools that have helped massively increase graduation rates. And graduation rates are a function of how we help people grow and learn. It's not a function of where they're at or where you come from in society. And he's proven that through his studies. And I'm sitting there listening to him, and it's just, the man was so incredible. And he told me, he just said, look, people just want you to be you, and they want to know that you're there to help them be better. And if you can go do that, they will fall in love with who you are and where you're at, and you'll learn from them and they'll learn from you, and we can all get better together and grow. So, I mean, the reality is, when you look at, you look at all these things that we're talking about here, building a brand, taking those steps to create a presence someplace. You just got to start. You just got to start, and you got to be present, because people don't care about your skills right now. They care about you as a human being. And he gave me this one thing to think about. And this is ultimately, I think, a key point here. Seclusion is the greatest and cheapest form of torture. Okay.
Ooh.
And I mean, think about that for a second. What have we just done the past couple of years? So, and I talk about the Great Reset. We've been tortured, and I'm not making a political statement, or I'm not making a COVID statement or anything like that. But the reality is, we had to lock ourselves up for some particular reason and not go to the office, not go to work, not see our customers face to face as much, things of that nature. And everybody feels like they've been let out, if you will, to an extent. And our job is to be the welcoming committee for that. So those of you looking for the reason to build a brand, there's no better time to build a brand than right now, because people are hungry for it. They're hungry to meet you and to know that you care and want to help them get better, because they've just been through a seclusion environment in their hearts and in their minds. If not in all reality, it's in an emotional state, and they're looking for you to be a leader for them. So that's what I have to say in this whole thing is now's the time. So
That
thank you for
That's like
having me
the
on here for that.
that's like the best mic drop ever. Like, just that's it. Let's wrap it up. That was absolutely brilliant because what you just said, I couldn't agree with you more. Now is now there could not be a better time. I've mentioned it leading up. This 2022 is the year of attention, of building your brand. And Adam, with what you just shared with everybody, it's just simply like going out, pushing through that fear, and doing it. So I cannot thank you enough for joining us today, sharing your wisdom, sharing your expertise, and leading by example, by executing on this. If somebody wants to continue to follow you, podcast, what's the name? I start with a win. You can find it on Apple, you can find it on Spotify, you can find it on all major podcast platforms. Check out your YouTube, Instagram. Where's your focus? Are you focused on any platform in particular next year?
I'm interested in really taking social media platforms, not anything in particular. You can go to startwithawin.com and it's got all of my platforms there, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I mean, and the book, of course, you can listen to my podcast there. Everything's in one place, or you can find me at adamcontos.com, which goes directly to startwithawin.com. And, ultimately what I'm trying to do is, instead of focusing on a platform, I'm focusing on a cause, and that's to create more leaders.
Oh, guys, and he's doing it. If you want to become a better leader in 2022, go to startwithawin.com, follow Adam, follow everything that he's doing. And again, we cannot thank Adam enough for joining us, for sharing all that you have. Really appreciate it. This is one of those friendships that I'm looking forward to actually with Adam. He's one of those guys that, and he inspires me. He makes me want to be a better human being. That's who you want to surround yourself with. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate everybody joining us. As always, we appreciate you. We love you. This Brand+Shred is focused on helping you become a better you, becoming a better brand, and sharing it with the world. As always, we appreciate you. We love you. Now it's time for all of you to go shred, go show up, hustle, repeat every day. We'll see you. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much again for joining us on another episode of Brand+Shred. I hope you got as much value out of this episode as I did. And if you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you don't miss a single weekly episode with the incredible guests that we're bringing you to help you build your personal brand. Click that subscribe button, share, and even leave a comment. We appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of Brand+Shred.